Savage. I'm a research director on campus, filling in for Penny Jester, who is out sick, but I hear she's feeling a little better. But it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Cathy Roche, Dr. Cathy Roche. We actually used to work together several years ago in labor and delivery, and she's going to tell you more about what she's doing and how she got to be a faculty with the School of Nursing, and is going to talk about recruitment and retention in clinical trials, something we all need to know more about on a daily basis. So thanks, Cathy, for being here.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I know several people here already through my various aspects of life here on campus at UAB. And I am going to talk about 5 strategies for improving participant retention. I'll talk a little bit about recruitment in here as well, but this is a subject that's near and dear to my heart. I did my dissertation on this whole subject, so I could talk about this in labor and delivery forever. I worked with Kathy Carter, Nancy Saxon, and all labor and delivery folks back in the day. So let's see here. I'll first tell you a little bit about how I got just from there to here. Back in 1981, I graduated from Worcester Hampton Hospital School of Nursing, and they don't make those anymore. That's where you go to hospital and become trained to be a nurse in a hospital setting. I think St. Vincent's had one. I think UAB had one too. And then from there, I got married. We moved to Hawaii, and I worked at Kapi'olani Children's Hospital. That's where I thought I really wanted to be a pediatric nurse. That's what I wanted to do because I love kids. But I didn't realize, I was so young and naive, I didn't realize that sometimes children die. And it just hurt my heart too much to really to stay with the children. So when my husband got transferred to Tampa, I decided I needed to get a bachelor's degree. So I went back to school at the University of South Florida in Tampa. And that's when I became interested. I had to do a preceptorship to get my BSN. So I did it in labor and delivery, and that's where I became interested in labor and delivery. I had the wonderful opportunity to work at a freestanding birth center, which was staffed by just certified nurse midwives, and it was really fabulous. And then I got some more kind of UAB type high-risk OB experience at Tampa General. Then we moved here, and that was probably, 26 years ago. So I've been here in the South longer than I've ever been anywhere in my life. And there's still things that I hear that I've never heard before. Somebody's telling stories. I was just telling Margaret back there, I had this cute little, I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. So now I take students to labor and delivery, and I'm an instructor at the School of Nursing. I'm an assistant professor, and I get to go all the way back to my roots, which is labor and delivery, which I love. In fact, some of the people there still call me Cathy Roche, the labor coach. That's what they remember me as. And I had this little student. I know I can't do HIPAA because we have FERPA and all this other stuff, but you won't know who she is. But she's just as cute as she could be. And she gets to see, I get to take students to labor and delivery to see their first delivery. They've never seen a delivery. Oh my gosh, I love it. Well, this little girl, she's so cute. She has this little bouffant hairdo, and her makeup is perfect, and we're there at 6:45 in the morning, and I look like this. And we go down to labor and delivery, and she goes, I really thought I wanted to be a labor and delivery nurse, Dr. Roche. She said, I get into that room, and I was doing really, really well, really, really well. It was so beautiful, but when that baby was born, she said, I was holding it together until her daddy started crying. And when that daddy started crying, Shalonda started crying. And I just thought, oh my gosh, it's so funny. I said, oh, you'll be fine, you'll be perfect. It's just so rewarding to be there with people as they experience birth for the first time. So I've kind of come full circle back to my labor and delivery days here at UAB, and I get to see it from a different perspective. But along that journey, my friend Laura Jones, who a lot of you know, the friend from labor and delivery, had asked me to work in research. So that's kind of where I got my foot in the door for research, and started working with Dr. Partridge in the ALTS trial, which was really a lot of fun. So with that being said, that's how I got from there to here. Penny Jester asked me to speak about retention, and as I said, that was what I did my dissertation on when I got my PhD in 2012. So what do we know about participant retention? We do know that it's a very important, critical aspect of all research studies. We know that high rates of attrition can compromise the validity of study findings, and that we know that identifying cost-effective ways to retain participants is definitely crucial in our to make our research successful. There's very few investigations that focus specifically on retention strategies. That's why I really thought that maybe something like this might be helpful to people who are trying to do their own studies and do retain patients once they get in. So my focus is mainly on retention, and we'll talk a little bit about recruitment at the end. And I would love to hear from you all about different ideas of recruitment and things. I love tips and anything like that. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the Look Ahead study. And I have some Look Ahead colleagues here. I have Amy and Shakilia and Jackie. And this is one of my studies that I worked on initially that really kind of got my interest in loving this subject of retention, because we had such an awesome team on the Look Ahead study, and that we were really able to really successfully retain participants over a lot of years. So and the study began back in 2001 here, and we recruited nationwide over 5,000 participants for multiple clinical centers. So what does that tell you right there? You've got multiple sites, right? You've got over 5,000 participants. You have to communicate. You got to be good at picking your team. So you have good communication skills, good people, good frontline people, good clinic people, and that's going to help with your retention. So back to the 5 steps. The number 1 step is to have a clear consenting process. And there's several components to a clear consenting process. And that's with your consent form right off the bat. I don't think these are any particular order, so I'm just going to talk about them. There in the Word document, you want to make sure that you have a reading level. I believe it's from 6th grade to 8th grade level. Is that what you all hear when you're submitting your consents? And you can check that in Word. I'm surprised that sometimes people don't realize there's a function in Word. If you go to statistics and grammar, you can check the reading level. And when I worked with the Look Ahead study, we checked the reading level of every patient participant communication that we sent out, because you want to make sure that everyone understands what you're saying and what you're doing. And I know that I'm at fault a lot of times for talking this language that other people don't, non-medical people, non-research people don't understand. So I'm always having to realize that they may not know what I'm talking about. So I really like that feature in Word, is to be able to check your readability statistics. I think it's called the Flesh Concave. It'll tell you what grade level it is. And usually it seems like whenever I write something, it's 12th grade level. But you have to kind of get it down to where it's an 8th grade level. One of the ways you can do that is look for multi-syllable words and try to change that wording to where you only have 2 syllables, because it'll make it more complicated if your word is 3 syllables. So I know sometimes that's hard with the things that have to go in the consent form, just because that's what's IRB. But if there's any way you can make it readable, that's helpful. Relationship building and developing trust. The consenting process is usually the first time that you have the opportunity to lay eyes on that potential participant. And you've got to be able to have, or have somebody in your group, on your research team, who can build that trust right away. That's the person who can convey trust and be that friendly person that can, build that relationship right at the get-go. All right. And there are studies out there about trust building. And one more thing about trust building. If you aren't prepared and you have your first clinical study, or your first visit on your first patient to the first, this first group, and you are disorganized, that doesn't convey trust sometimes. You might lose people. They might not have trust in you or what you're doing or what your research is telling you. So you want to be sure and you use that, because you don't have a second time to make a first impression. So, another way to facilitate consent understanding is with visuals. One of the tools that can be used is looking at that consent form and taking it out and saying, okay, now if you get to be in, or if you are in the this part of the arm of the trial, then this is what's required of you. Real simple, like bullet points, so they can see, oh, I'm going to have to come every week for 10 weeks and spit out my chewing gum into a bucket, whatever kind of study you're doing. Or, oh, I'm in the control group. Oh, you only have to see me once, so So letting them know what they're getting into, and are they willing to do whatever you're asking about, because you don't know what they're going to be if there's randomization. Okay? So visuals can sometimes help see, okay, this is what's required of me, and you can reduce barriers at that time. Offering a run-in when possible. I don't know if you're developing studies or if you're already doing studies that are out there. You want to be able to, if you can have a run-in, it's nice because people get to try on that study. They get to try it on and see if it's something they're willing to do. Let's say they have to keep a food diary for a week at a time. Is that something you can do? Is that something you're willing to do? And if they come back for a second visit and they haven't done that, well, you know, that might be a big problem if they're not going to be compliant or adherent to your research study. So it's a time that you can reduce barriers if you have a second component to a visit where they have to try it on. Okay, this is kind of a cool thing. There's a lot of stuff out there about explaining randomization in a neutral way. As you know, if you've been consenting people before, you've always said, usually your standard bid is, well, it's like the flip of a coin, head, tails, you know, heads you win, tails you lose. There is actually research done by this Janice Krieger person who surveyed and researched some people who said, you know, that's not really the best way. We need another metaphor for describing randomization because people didn't understand what that meant. And the other thing when you say it's like a flip of a coin, that implies, this is from the study, this is what research participants said, that there's a loser. You know, when you flip a coin, there's always a loser. And sometimes people want to come and be in your study because they want the treatment, but they might not get the treatment. So we have to be sure that we convey as researchers and clinicians and people that consent that being part of a research study is that's the benefit, that you're helping everyone. You're helping find new ways to treat new conditions, and that's the benefit. What in this article they talk about, and I don't know how I feel about this, so you guys just have to feel your own feel, but I'm going to just tell you what it said. It said that you could describe it as like the birth of a baby. It didn't matter whether it was a boy or a girl. But sometimes I feel like it does matter, so I don't know if that's the best, but that's what it said in the paper. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying. But sometimes it says to, you know, just think of a better way to describe randomization so that people understand, because it's a concept that we get, but the people out there walking on the street don't necessarily get what that means. And they could be at risk to drop out of your project or your study because they didn't understand they weren't going to get the treatment. So the goal is that we do these research projects to advance science, and we're happy to have you be a part of this. Are you willing to do this no matter what? Yes, you kind of get that upfront commitment with them. So that's one thing that I thought was really cool, that the concept of randomization is so frequently misunderstood. Because when I've consented people in the past, you know, they sit there, and so you think that they got it, but research says that they don't. Another thing that you can do is you can use a consent evaluation form. And we did this in the Look Ahead study, which I had never heard of before until actually we implemented it in there. And I thought that it was a wonderful way to make sure that we had consent. So right after you consent the person, the potential participant, you can ask them some questions about the consent form, about what did you hear, what did you say. And some of the questions are, like, for example, tell me in your own words, why are we doing this study? And then if they have to call it back, then you can, this is a wonderful tool to identify and clear up areas that maybe they don't understand. Maybe they misunderstood something that you said, and this is a way that you can clear that up. Another question was, tell me 2 things that we'll ask you to do as part of the study. It could be any 2 things. We'll ask you to come to a clinic visit once a month, or you know, anything that they say that you mentioned in the consent form. Another question was, if you joined this study today, could you stop at any time? Some people don't understand that, yeah, you're a volunteer, and you can stop. We don't want them to stop, and that's my whole purpose of this, how to keep them in. We don't want them to stop because it can affect our results, but they need to know that they can, and they have that right to stop at any time. Tell me 1 benefit to being in the study. You go over in your consent form the risks and benefits, and then tell me 1 risk to being in the study. One thing, and I'll just share with you, I know, look at it here, but it was always funny to me. They all know that one of the risks of the study, there was an older population for individuals that had type 2 diabetes, and they're probably now, they were in their 50s, but now we're 14 years later, they're in their 60s, 70s, so they're getting older. When I asked this question, what's one risk about being in this study? And I said, well, driving to Birmingham. That's not in the consent form. But it's wonderful information to know that if you work with that population in the future, that's a perceived risk, even though it's not mentioned in the consent form. So those are just kind of things that are interesting to note of what participants really think. So let's see. Number 2, identify multiple contacts. So this, I'm sure you all know, a lot of times with drug studies, you get a basic contact form that you fill out. But you can always modify that and get good names, get good contacts, and who you live with, who doesn't live with you, who knows where you are at all times, what's your cell phone number, is it okay if I text you, may I reach you? And one thing I haven't considered, because I did this a little while ago, but since I've done this talk, I wondered about Facebook. Does anybody use Facebook to connect their participants? Because you know what, we may change phone numbers, we may change addresses, but you know what, we still have that same Facebook profile. And you can find people out there who just put their name in. You don't have permission to do that, but they're there. But I've never contacted anybody, so I just wondered if anybody had any experience with that. No? But it's one way to get a hold of people. I guess you have to get their permission to do that outside.
Why would we consider Facebook profiles for protected information? I guess it's what
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. But if you had permission to contact them through a Facebook profile, I would imagine that would be okay. Email addresses, again, and ask permission for those that that you're getting the contact with. We also, in the study, we did proxy letters, so we had participants sign a letter saying that, okay, if there's something happens to you and I can't get a hold of you and I need to find out your health information, is it okay if I talk to your neighbor? And or who is it okay if I talk to? And you say, oh, my neighbor knows where I am all the time. Well, can you ask her to sign this paper? That way we all are in communication that she knows you're on a study and you have my permission and I have your permission to talk to this person. Again, it's just about how we want to be treated, what we want if we were the participants. Keeping notes on participants and their contacts. It's so hard for me to remember names. Now that I'm teaching in the School of Nursing, I have like 120 students every semester coming in on teaching skills. I don't know which semester they're from or which lab they're from, and I just have such a hard time remembering their names. And I always felt this way too in other studies where you have a lot of people. How do I remember your name? And certain people you remember and other people you don't. Well, there was this one, we kept a little note, just like a little spread, a little chart note, progress note kind of thing on people. And if we knew that somebody had had a death in the family, or we knew a lot about those people over the years so that we could reconnect when they came back in. And I remember one person, I said pets because I wrote down a lot of dog names. A lot of people know that I'm a dog lover, so I write down their pets' names so I could say, how fluffy. Because I could remember before I went in to see him, oh, I know who that is. That's the person that has. There was one gentleman, and he had a goat. The goat's name was Billy. And I loved to talk to him about his goat Billy, and I was really sad when his goat Billy died. He didn't come back to the study. I think he was really attached to that goat. But anyway, I like to talk about Billy the goat. But anyway, significant life events. These kind of help, again, with that, when going back to the trust building and the bonding and the keeping patients engaged in the study by building those relationships and knowing the people and conveying the part that, they're not just in a study. They get so much more by being in a study because they get to have a relationship with you. Okay. Here's my evidence-based. When you do a dissertation, everything has to be evidence-based. And why do you say that? And I told you there's very little evidence about clinical retention in participants. But in this particular study, they reported that participants who provided what they call collaterals, those other names, in the study they call them collaterals, at baseline were significantly more likely to complete the interview. That has nothing to do with did you have to call those collaterals. It's just that they supplied those collaterals. So they had a 73.9% chance of completing the interview, which was part of the study, just because somebody supplied that. So, you can infer what you want from that. So you want to collect as many collaterals that you can. Regular communication. And again, that's the thank you cards, the birthday cards, the holiday cards. One of the things that helps with that is just if they've moved, it'll come back, it'll alert you that you might be losing them to, they might have a change of address, so you can help find them with that. And also just, again, letting people know that you're here and that you care about them. Emailing, text messages, if they've given you permission at the beginning of that first meeting, and text them, how's it best to get in touch with you. Study updates, newsletters, keeping them informed. And again, when you do those study updates and newsletters, it's a really good idea to go back to that reading level and make sure that it's at their level, that you're not sending things that are too out there, that will reach everyone. And again, telephoning, just even if you're not calling to bug them about an appointment, just, I know that you're having surgery, I'm just saying, call and say, hey, how are you doing? If you have that type of relationship with your participants. Multiple visit notifications. This is kind of, I think, an important thing. I know it's an important thing for me when I have a dentist appointment, because they call me, they text me, they email me, and I won't forget that, because I don't want to be a no-show. I don't want to look at it. It happened to me one time. I was at the dentist's office and we left the thing open and I see a big note, big letters, no show. I don't want to be that no-show person. They wrote me up as that. So now I'm really, with all those multiple reminders, there's no reason that I wouldn't remember my dental visits. So I think it helps participants too to remember that, because they have so much going on in their life to come to a study visit. It's nice to have a packet of instructions with directions, reduce any kind of barrier that you can have. And then a little, like 2 weeks ahead, have that packet, and then a week ahead, maybe a postcard, just a reminder, and then maybe a day ahead, a telephone call. Now, those of you that do research realize that's a lot of FTE, right? That's a lot of employees. That's a lot of effort to keep these people in. And I think that's one of the things that people that develop these research programs need to keep in mind, that this takes a lot of effort to do.
And money.
And money, because you got to pay people to do this stuff. And not automated reminder calls. If you can get actually a hold of a person, and keep trying until you get a hold of a person and get that confirmation that yes, they are going to come, that's a little more meaningful. I know it's harder nowadays when you get cell phones and all of that. It's still more meaningful to not just have an automated voice. And after they are that no-show in the chart, that right after that you go and give them a call. Are you okay? Is everything okay? I noticed you didn't show for your clinic visit. Can we reschedule? Just trying not to lose those people, not trying to let too much time go by without them being engaged in your research. Number 5, identify potential dropouts early. Again, we've all had those passive refusals, like, I'll be there tomorrow. And when you can hear, yeah, I see these heads on, I know. So one of those things, you want to identify those people as quickly as you can, so that you can intervene and do something to reduce whatever barrier they have for the passive refusal. You want to keep track of missed visits, and especially that's where a run-in can come in handy, because if they have several missed visits before they're even randomized, red flag, do you really want this? If you have the luxury to choose, do you want that participant in your study? The team meetings, the importance of team meetings and bringing those people to the table, and problem solving and saying, okay, we have this person, we've got an issue, this has happened, that has happened, anybody got any ideas? So that's the importance of team meetings is critical to participant retention. Working around ambivalence, and that is, again, when you have the, well, I was thinking about wanting to come, but trying to help problem solve with your patients, with your participants, working around the ambivalence, trying to, kind of maybe going back to something that they said earlier, to see if they will reconsider. You said it was important that you be part of the study because you wanted to help people. Is that something you still want to do? Because if not, and reducing all barriers. Is it parking? Is it transportation? Is it, because you don't know what's going on. Is it time? Is it they can't get here from 8 to 5 when your clinic is? They need to come at a different time. So reducing all barriers and identifying those potential dropouts early. Oh, wow. I'm fast. All right, so the summary. Here are the 5 tips that we just went over. We went over the clear consenting process, multiple contacts, regular communication, multiple visit notifications, and identify dropout risks early. So those are the 5, the Roche approach to retention. All right, and here are some resources, UAB resources. I have some cards up here if you want to have my card and you want to call me if you've got something you're brainstorming about and you want to just pick my brain or whatever. We also have a UAB recruitment and retention shared facility. And I also wanted to talk a little bit about mailing lists and printing services. When I worked on another study, not the look-ahead study, but a different study up the street, we seem to have really good results just by buying a mailing list. And I'd like input for this. How do other people get their participants? But we would buy a mailing list with a targeted demographic and send a postcard. And then people call back in, and so they kind of self-identify for your research. So they already have an interest. It's not like you're having to sell somebody on something you're doing. They already have an interest. And so we would send that out. We may send them out a couple of times to the same demographic area. We do one mail out, say, in January, and then maybe another mail out to the same demographic if we were still recruiting from that population and get even more calls. They would become lower. But then the third time, we get even more calls. You know why? Because on the postcard, we put last chance. Somehow people respond to that. Oh, I better call. I've seen this postcard 3 times already, and now it's my last chance to be part of this study. So I'm going to call and find out what it's about. Having somebody be able to answer those calls. Again, we're talking FTE. I don't know how practical that is, but it's nice to have that voice because you're going to lose people and hang up on, not leaving a message or whatever. So, but it enhances motivation if they're self-identified to stay in, at least they've made a call. So, and here's a name right here, Paula Blackwell, or Paula Mitchell. Yeah, I guess Blackwell is her maiden name. And she's in bulk mail, and you can buy the mailing lists with your age, your demographics, your diabetes, blood pressure, whatever you want, and you can get those. And then they also do the printing if you design your card, your postcard, and we'll mail it out. We found that it was probably, in terms of cost efficiency, it was probably the most cost-effective way to get the biggest bang for your buck, rather than, say, sending people out to the clinic to sit in a geriatric clinic and wait and approach every geriatric person that comes in like a salesperson. I talked to you about a research study. So this seemed to be the biggest bang for your buck. I notice in Hero Gyne, I see that when I go on my Facebook, sometimes I see pictures, you know, you're a lady, 60 years old or over, and you have trouble holding your bladder. Why does that come up on mine? Is it because I'm a friend of UAB? Do you know how did it? Yeah. That's because I'm a friend of UAB?
Or work there, or boy there, went to school there, somewhere in your...
It's not because I have urogynecology.
But
I don't know about that. But I just wondered, I thought that was a really interesting way to recruit. And do you know if
Through marketing here.
Through marketing here? And have you guys had great success with that through Facebook? Because I know you usually have to ask, right?
We just started a couple months ago, and we've had a good response. The patients have not actually, most of them have not kept their appointments, but we've scheduled a lot of appointments so far. So, yeah, they just fill out a little survey. When they click on that, they can fill out a little survey, and then the email comes to us, and we'll give them a call. And so they're kind of already screened. We have like 5 basic screening questions.
Do you know about how many people you've gotten, Nancy? Like how many?
50,
Yeah.
50 or 60?
And none of them show them.
No,
No, some of them have, but a lot.
But we've noticed it. It's of like 10, you know, maybe we had 5 or 4 that did not, you know, it just seemed like we noticed. And the clientele seems to be a little more educated.
So how did you How'd you set it up in the first
Through
place?
the marketing here at UAB.
Is it an actual ad?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's an ad.
You can add to come up.
That pops
It'll
up on
say,
the
do
side of
you
Facebook.
have urinary leakage? Or you know, and then it's,
So in like that
and you
site.
click on it and
It's not just something to share it on, like you do.
it's like an ad. Everything.
And what, I mean, and it's, you know, the cost, I think, is around $400 a month.
Okay. Really, this is really a great talk, and it's like when you know you're going to have a study that's going to either recruit a lot of people or a difficult population, is to think through what you need to do to find those people and how much will it cost. And do you need someone who can sit at the phone and take those calls? And, you know, thinking that through before you do your budget and make sure you have it all. That's really critical. And it's one other thing you brought up, Kathy, was talking about that after you consent them, the little questionnaire form, what do you call it, the verification that they understand. I had never done that, and then one of our network, NIH sponsors, my website Trials Network requires that. These are healthy volunteer studies, and it's using HIV prevention microbicides, and they have them repeat afterwards, what it's really pretty much the prompt questions you did. Mm-hmm. And that's the first that I had seen that, and it's really a great idea. Surprising how many people, they're nodding, and then into the study, well, I didn't know I was going to have to come this often.
Right,
It's
right.
really,
And then you're at risk for dropout, which is that you didn't realize that they were supposed to do all of that. So there's a lot of tools that you can do. But again, we have to be thinking, because researchers, we think of these great ideas to do this research, but then you don't think of what is it really going to take in terms of effort and staff and money to get a really good study and to have a really good study. And sometimes I know with clinical trials and drug trials, it's a certain set budget or whatever. So you need to know these tricks to get a big, that's where we are all, that's why we kind of come together, so we can find out from each other what is the biggest bang for your buck? What can we do to enhance?
another thing we can use through the CCTS, and not familiar with the research match.
Yeah.
Anybody's done that? We've had pretty good success with that too.
Mm-hmm.
But then we go through all those, and then it's like it's dried up. We run out of people. So $400 a month for that could well be worth it if you have a good budget.
Because we just advertised other ways radio, and that was expensive. We've done some TV ads, that was expensive. So for the amount of calls that we're getting or emails, I mean, it's
Like the bulk mail.
Yeah, and we kept track of different things that we did, like community outreach, and we kept track of how much that cost and how much it costs to send somebody out there, and the time and the effort and everything. And that's why I really wanted to share this, Paula Mitchell, and the postcard. That was the biggest financial bang for the buck. We got the most people for that, with that postcard mailing. But again, you're talking about that demographic, so too, you got to think of, are these people, this particular trial was people that were 80 years and above, are they on the internet and Facebook?
Right.
But, so you really have to target your recruitment goals and strategies to age.
That's really.
And they also created certain terms for the Google search engine, so that when women go in and type urine leakage or stool leakage, that's the studies I've been in, within a certain zip code, it will send them to our website.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of included in it. So yeah, it's like.
Would you mind, Nancy, when you get back to your office, sending that contact information?
Yeah.
That we can maybe circulate that, so everybody can have that, just like you have this. That would be helpful for others to have, because I was very intrigued.
Yeah.
I saw that. I thought, oh,
That's
I think now with social media, so many things that that are available to do to search.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
Google's.
That, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess we finished early. I thought I would talk for a whole hour, but
I think, is it an hour? Because I saw that.
we're maybe in 30 minutes. I just want to end with my last slide, this little slide. I was doing my research. This is a participant in an HIV study. See, Karen does it.
I didn't say that, but we do HIV clinical trials. Yeah.
But this, and I feel this way about so many look-ahead participants, even though I'm not with Looking Ahead anymore and I'm totally at the School of Nursing, I still feel this bond with some of them that we've been together for so many years through so many births, deaths, everything. And we paid them a pretty big stipend too. They got money for coming in once a year, a pretty decent stipend. But she said, you know, I came for the money, but I stayed for the love, and that's what I hope people will get and stay. One more little quick tidbit before I go is there is some research out there that nurses are, you know, people that are enrolled in clinical trials where there's a nurse, I'm going to promote nursing here, where there's a nurse involved, they actually have better outcomes. So I don't know where that is. I can't cite that for you, but I was okay.
The nurses are caregivers, they're nurturers, and social workers.
Any questions? Thank you all for coming. I was excited to give this. I know
Welcome
so
to
many
be
people
that.
here.
That's a great idea for recruiting. So, thank you. Again, for the resources and just give that something.
Oh, and I'll be doing a journal club in a few weeks. I don't know when we schedule it. So,
Oh, yes. We do want to promote some of our other trainings, and I can't remember everything. Journal Club is the third Thursday of every month. And if you aren't, did you all get emails about this? Are you on the email distribution list? So you'll get it.
research orientation is
The 23rd. So we have a new research orientation. So for new research employees, very new research, the first, the fourth Thursday of the month, we have a program from 8 to noon. And it's introducing just really how to keep yourself out of trouble when you're in your research. Very basic things, but good information. All right. Everybody have a great rest of the day.
Thanks. And here's one of my cards if you want to take it or. Gave me a whole bunch of cards.
How you, Karen? Stress, but anybody with urge, start out with yeah, there's quite a few drugs. Yeah, so where are you? You're in the city. Jester.
And it's
Okay, nice to meet you.
Roger.
So are you still?
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So you've been there a long time.
Wow. I thought I'd be forever. And I was there 10 years. Yeah, we're retired in April.
So you guys are in Birmingham,
Me too.
Yeah, that's mad. So I need to get up into my 60s to capitalize on all the benefits.
Yes, they are. Yeah. Are y'all liking research then?
How long have you been doing this? How long have we been in the new building? You were here before.
I started in 2000.
So 9 years.
So are you covering the new?
Yeah.
I haven't designed a community here. I don't know if there's community building, but we're getting like, you know where the old, snowman building is?
Yeah. They're about the size of
It's
it.
amazing. We've been here forever, but it's really for the clinic. Well, and yes, yeah. Used to take care of people.
You don't really hear it like it used to be. People must really have a prolonged quality of life.
You know what kind of studies we're doing now? We're doing studies just to try, to try to keep people that have long-term development, diabetes and heart disease on those things earlier. I mean, long story short, even though they have HIV, or they do have HIV, and their viral load is undetectable. So they basically are doing great, but they're still have the virus, and there's still cells that are affected with the virus that drugs can kill. So they still have that ongoing sort of inflammation on their heart, and they're more at risk of developing heart disease.
You see a lot of new cases still, I mean, you just hear about it. You really don't.
That's a shame. It's still, the numbers are very, very high, and most of them, for a while, they turned it down. And nobody diagnosed them because they didn't look like, they didn't know for sure of HIV. So they just didn't, like, days. I thought that man was young, really young,
Yeah, when they see it. So more not as much heterosexual.
It's still there, but with the highest rate now is in hospitals. But yeah, there's still, it's still on.
But I'm practicing the same things as much as they talk about condoms.
Start 5 minutes before you
We talk about it. It's all the practice. And then the good news is they think that they're high risk of testing more often, so that's why they're probably the highest rate. And the statistics show that there are probably so many people that are in the population, probably more than that have diabetes and Parkinson's. Yeah, because, you know, wait.
Oh, yeah, you know, all the time.
That's right.
Well, we got that 60-year-old, she's on up there.
We could do on our study that are
Positive.
oh yeah, I think I bet all one of them. Only because she's talking about issues. I don't think that that's related to your HIV. HIV doesn't.
Yeah, really more related to
I wouldn't think so. I understand it on Facebook.
But we do have some stuff with women, lots of women, brain
Tell Rachel. How aren't you, Josie and everybody? Tell them.
Yeah, Josie's heading to St. Augustine tomorrow to say the Friday camp. But I don't have the contact. So they train.
And why do you think the population, because, you know, like if we were to ask, we get more.
You know, Rachel, I know, I remember
Why
why
do
she
you
was
think,
school
why
say
is
that.
it more than, they think they just go,
But she's young, too. She is, she's so probably just fabulous, but she hasn't been tamed yet, you know.
not even. Yeah.
She's engaged.
Oh, no, they could test.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't really, they're, I know.
More active.
But that's, I'm sure it's something that you
Skewed a little bit.
You're all about Jason, he was the same fraud. I know, it's awesome. I would be great.
What's our, I'm so glad.
Great, you did it very good.
She thinks there's something that, yeah, makes them more, yeah. So-
It's, yeah, but it did start. Long time ago, after I read about it. And it was on Sunday. It really got transferred out of Africa and airplanes.
Yeah.
Came out, and people would fly there. Yeah.
But again,
It's still in the world, but it doesn't hear Africa. It has way more. Is it more all real? Way more. Yeah, way more. Well, 2 years ago, pepperoni for George Bush, that pepperoni, they brought up programs that started to treat people and they treated their stuff cheaper too. That's ridiculous. But they're being treated and more meds and stigma is better than it was, and there are people who there's still a lot of same problems.
you don't want to know.
And it's crazy now. Took 1 pill a day, tell me about it.
Right.
Well,
You need to, but I'm just saying, you don't have to tell us that's good.
They have a ton of prescriptions.
I've seen it.
1 pill, 1 pill.
Sure, when they first.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
5 pills, 5 times, 7 more bucks. One pill, and it's 1 pill, but it's like 3 pills in one.
What's it called?
There's like, the first one that came out was a There's another one called Spotfield, another one called Cuera.
They're ABT.
That's a bad drug. No, I mean, it's compared to what they have now. It's ABT causes more nausea, anemia, and stuff like that.
That was one of the first ones.
Yeah, it was.
And another one that was new was Calitra, caused horrible diarrhea. Since I've been there, all of the drugs are so much better tolerated. And we would have had this new drug that was being compared to Calitra that caused horrible diarrhea. And this guy, this patient said, I can't, I'm on a placebo, I'm not diarrhea anymore. I said, no, we can't give you a placebo. It's just, you're not going to have diarrhea on this pill. So it's really awesome. Yeah. So
And what about that, do they ever not have to take them, like, can they get to a point where the virus is something like you have, herpes zoster and unless you get shingles later on, you don't ever
It's
know.
always
Yeah.
there.
There's this, there's like a very, very, very small part of the population, and these people are really, they study their blood, because for whatever reason, they're called believing rollers. So they have the antibody, but they never develop the virus, and they don't really understand why. But they can choose not to take medicine, the virus, they just get the viral check, there's no reason to. But now what they're saying, especially with the medicine so well tolerated, and so much information about the sooner you start, the better you do. Pretty much anybody that gets diagnosed that has viral load starts medicine. Right. So
That's just right.
one of the things we're looking at though is they're looking at monoclonal antibodies and some different drugs that people can take and maybe do treatment interruptions or drug holidays. We're actually about to start studying that. So they really are still looking at things to cure it. It's really pretty cool. So we haven't given up on a cure or a vaccine.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, sure. Yeah, anytime.
Well, thank you all, Kathy, it was great. I enjoyed it.
I enjoyed
Enjoyed it.
Because I wanted to hear your thing about Facebook. I was glad we're in that.
This was really.
I think we are the first research group that they advertised for research.
We have some trouble with some on our website, volunteer studies. And, that's these other options to try.
Yeah.
How do they do off the street? Share all that forward.
Well, then you can get them, because my elder zip codes have the most.
I need to go back and watch those, because they used to go with comments, they don't run, but they won't for what we're doing. So, and that was going to be how my website reading.
How young?
On YouTube.
So you could even, not even college advertisements. That's tough.
I think Facebook,
Yeah.
social media.
But 15 to 17.
And they have to have at least that, potential vaginal.
That's a tough group. How many do I have? Oh, that's big. Inner city maybe could get a lot.
Yeah, we were gonna go to the health department there. And, maybe the bulk now.
You can even tailor it to households that have teenagers. You're not spending too much money.
We just did it.
So would you, if you get that in the mail for your daughter, you gonna pass it on? I would.
We would pass it on. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how to reach that. That's a hard.
So well, and it's funny because Thomas said something at the children's and adolescent clinic, identified some irritation and sent something to them, but we got nothing from that. I just spoke to the parents. I know, it's really frustrating.
That would be hard.
It's easy when it's a study of the disease and that they're offering treatment.